Trump is, as we all know now, at least those of us who are still rational, who still believe that there might be a way out for this country, Trump has been targeting just anybody and everybody that he thinks is against him or has done something to hurt his feelings. And prominent among those people is, of course, George Soros, who is a heavy contributor to liberal or democratic causes. And he has a son, Alex. Well, the toilet rat yesterday demanded that George Soros and his son Alex face federal racketeering charges because the toilet rat made a ridiculous bullshit claim that George Soros and his son Alex are backing violent protests across the country. On social media platform, his Pravda Social, he referred to the RICO Act, the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, the federal law that's used to fight organized crime. The toilet rat wrote this, quote, George Soros and his wonderful radical left son should be charged with RICO because of their support of violent protests and much more, all throughout the United States of America, unquote. Of course, this dumb son of a bitch provides, he never does, any evidence for his claim that somehow George Soros is backing violent protests. And according to the Post, it's not clear what sparked this latest bullshit against Soros. The Republicans have been strongly criticizing Soros for years because Soros is a Democrat, or at least he backs Democratic causes. Now, there's a philanthropic network that was founded by George Soros. It's called the Open Society Foundation. There's a couple of parts of that organization. And that foundation has long pushed back against the Christian bullshit attacks over the foundation's activities, including the allegation the right wing, the Nazi fucks who worship Donald Christ, they have said for a long time that the Soros organization pays protesters or coordinates with them on how to handle a demonstration. Let me tell you, just from my own personal experience, I mean, I have attended, I can't tell you how many demonstrations during the horror of Trump 1 and now the unspeakable sickness of Trump 2, and I still haven't got my check from George Soros. Jesus Christ. Now, the network of Open Society Foundations called, obviously, what Trump said about the Soros family, quote, outrageous and false, end quote. In a statement, Sean Savitt, spokesman for the foundation, said this, quote, the Open Society Foundations do not support or fund violent protests. Our mission is to advance human rights, justice, and democratic principles at home and around the world, end quote. But you see, that is the indictment right there. Any organization, any individual that has a mission to advance human rights or justice or democratic principles or health or science or rationality or honesty, decency, any organization or individual who supports one or all of those aspects of the human condition is immediately considered suspect by the toilet rat. Because none of that makes any sense to him at all. He is a self-referential, half-witted moron who only thinks of himself. The Justice Department declined to comment on the demand for RICO charges against George and Alex Soros. Jesus Christ. Now, as you know, the toilet rat, like any good, filthy, fucking sick, degenerate Nazi, continues to target his political enemies using his power as president of the United States. He has forced so many people into investigations, other punitive measures. He has extracted extortion money from attorney firms, from broadcast entities. He is a criminal unlike any that this country has ever seen. And in the meantime, while he's committing his crimes here at home, he is causing innumerable deaths around the planet because of the way he gutted U.S. foreign aid for health and education and vaccines, and it just goes on and on. Last week, you remember, the FBI raided the home and the office of John Bolton, who had at one time been Trump's national security advisor. But in the years since Bolton worked for the toilet rat, Bolton had the scales fall from his eyes and could see that he was working for a Nazi who would have fit perfectly into Hitler's regime, or probably even better into Stalin's regime, or maybe even the best as O'Brien in Orwell's 1984, although Trump does not have the brains to be O'Brien's jockstrap, but at least the comparison is probably there. The Trump toilet rat has also started an investigation into the New York Attorney General, Letitia James. She was the one who led the fraud case against Trump after his first term, and where he was convicted of 34 felony accounts. And, of course, the massive fine that was levied against him has now been dismissed, I guess, although I think Letitia James is going to appeal the dismissal by an appellate court. The appellate court said it was too big or something. I don't know. The toilet rat has also publicly accused Senator Adam Schiff of mortgage fraud. It was Schiff who led impeachment proceedings against this rotten bastard when Schiff was a House member. And all of this goes back to what the toilet rat promised his mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging assholes with the red hats who attended all of his shitty little rallies, when he promised that his presidency would be retribution against political opponents. Not political opponents of the people standing out there with their mouths open, cheering like a bunch of fucking orangutans, but political opponents that he selected, that he decided were against him because they insisted on holding him to the standards of law like everybody else in this country. So, Soros, of course, is the biggest among Democratic donors in this country. And his son is also a pretty heavy contributor to the Democratic Party. One nonprofit that is linked to Soros spent at least $60 million in the 2024 election. That's according to the Washington Post. And in a recent post by the toilet rat, he said that Soros and his associates have, quote, caused great damage to the country. And the toilet rat added, "Be careful, we're watching you." Jesus fucking Christ. Now, irony no longer exists where it concerns this rotten bastard, but as the toilet rat calls for a RICO investigation or prosecution of the Soroses, he still faces state racketeering charges here in Georgia over his efforts to overturn his loss in 2020. And the future of that case, of course, has been stopped right now. No certainty that's going to continue. That's when a state appeals court disqualified the district attorney here, Fani Willis, from leading the prosecution. And they disqualified her because her boyfriend was a prosecutor in Fulton County. And based on that, I mean, here we have a president who has assaulted or sexually violated innumerable women, according to them. a guy who was found guilty of sexual assault and in the E. Jean Carroll case. And in that case, the judge said that as far as the judge was concerned, finger penetration of a woman's privates was the same thing to the judge as rape. This is the same guy who said, you ought to grab a woman by her pussy. They really love it, especially if you're famous. And this son of a bitch had a lawyer here in Georgia, a local lawyer, who managed to convince the appellate court that this whole thing should be stopped, and convinced a superior court that Fannie Willis should be disqualified because her boyfriend and she had a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Pretty insane, huh? Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. The Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.